All right, so Bitcoin today falling down a little bit from that resistance level at 117 nearly. No surprises here. We obviously were expecting resistance at this level. That's why we've got a nice big juicy yellow box here. And we haven't seen a big pullback here. I mean, we've entered weekend price action, so we're expecting a little bit more, foolery going on. But to be honest, it's been pretty controlled. I mean, we've seen altcoins popping. So here's Cardano getting close to that resistance level again here at about 830 Satoshis, let's say, against Bitcoin. We've seen Solana continuing to perform incredibly well, also now hitting a macro resistance zone. So, I mean, altcoins are definitely looking good. Altcoins have seen a pretty nice kind of increase over the last couple of days, and especially throughout the course of today and yesterday. And obviously, that is being reflected in Bitcoin dominance, which has now set a brand new low all the way down at 57.1 for this drop that we're in right now. Obviously, we've recovered a little bit of that already, but, Saturday, still, trading hours left depending on where in the world you are. And of course, we've got all of Sunday as well. So, there's definitely lots more that could be taking place this weekend. Ethereum has seen a little bit of a pump to the upside. But let's start by talking about Bitcoin. And actually, before we get there, we can't talk about Bitcoin without looking at the S&P 500. This is one of the core themes on this channel now, as you know very well, because we understand that the analysis we do is going to be tied to a large extent to what the S&P 500 does, especially if we're looking at, the kind of larger term, longer term kind of analysis. So S&P 500 right here, pretty straightforward, ladies and gents. It's popped to a new all-time high. That's definitely what allowed Bitcoin to also hit this resistance level. S&P is at a slightly higher all-time high. Bitcoin is within spitting distance of its all-time high, in this case 7.8% now from current price, or about 6.5%, 6.6% from the high that we set just yesterday. So Bitcoin's looking pretty good. If Bitcoin does continue this retracement down, then we've got support down here at 112. And what's really important about this support is the fact that Bitcoin kind of fell down here, but then subsequently recovered that 112K range. It does make this look like a deviation. And so I think one of the ways that I want to, kind of define this range now is basically going to be, these lines right here, like just this line up top over here representing kind of the top of the range, and this line down here representing the bottom of the range. Realistically, it's probably better if we draw these levels with boxes. It just, makes it a little bit clearer what kind of point we're trying to make with these levels. But, these are the two key levels that I think are in play. And so obviously every time we get above these levels, or below these levels, it seems like we are getting deviations. And that does tell us that we're now back in play to kind of see the top of that range and come back down. However, of course, we do have this kind of interim resistance level right here at about 117, 116. I think we can definitely draw it a little bit higher. And that does indicate that if this correction is going to strengthen a little bit, that we might have to drop down to that 112K range again. But again, because we've done so much to prove that this is potentially just a kind of, deviation that we had down here, to me, it would actually be a really strong sign if Bitcoin does come back down here and capture support and then continues to kind of rally higher. However, I don't really think Bitcoin can do that if the S&P 500 is not looking bearish, and right now it isn't. It's also a lot to happen for Bitcoin across just one weekend. Bear in mind that, again, depending on where in the world you are, but UTC time zone, Saturday is nearly finished. And, we've only got one more day, Sunday, right? So that's a lot of time to see Bitcoin somehow crash all the way down to 112 and then recover as well. I don't really think that's going to happen in a weekend. And so, if this does continue on, your best case for seeing a recovery, might have to come in somewhere around, 113, 114. I don't think any of these levels are particularly important, and I don't think there's any clear way of seeing where it might bounce from. You could use things like throwing indicators onto the charts, and we've definitely got 4-hour Ichimoku support developing at the bottom of this range, but obviously we're going to have some EMAs a little bit tighter with the current price as well, so this might be something that looks interesting. But like I said, I don't really think there's any real way to forecast where this thing might finally capture support. What's much more important is that regardless of where it happens, if we do manage to come back up here, which I think is overwhelmingly likely, I think it's very likely that Bitcoin comes back up here. In that case, I think we are looking at a very, very special moment in the market where if we can penetrate this 117K level, it's going to be quite easy to get up to 120. And I mean, there is a big block of resistance here. This could definitely be a problem. But again, if we're kind of entering the range, I don't think it's going to be much of a problem to travel through that range to the top. And obviously, breaking 120 is kind of the more important level. I'm not even worried about the all-time high. I think that if we just break 120, we're going to be able to smash past those levels quite easily. And of course, like I said, the S&P is kind of telling us that we're poised to do that right now. Now, what I really like is while markets are cooling down right now over the weekend, we are seeing that bleed into altcoins, and that's making these altcoin positions look absolutely fantastic. So I told you about how I've been very bullish on Cardano, Solana, and they've both seen some pretty nice pumps taking place here. We had a massive live stream talking about this just yesterday, so go ahead and make sure that you did check that out. And we are seeing now, a pretty significant level that Sol BTC is up against. Now, it's worth noting that if you guys are interested in buying coins on spot, there is a brilliant OTC provider called 𝗙𝐈𝗟𝗟 that I've been working with. I've personally transacted large volumes through them, and they pretty much serve over-the-counter buying and selling worldwide. But what's important about this, it's not like a standard exchange. You can deposit crypto, you can deposit fiat, but you can also get your crypto and fiat sent across to wherever it needs to go. So crypto can go to a wallet and fiat can go to a bank account pretty much anywhere in the world. They do have limitations on where they can send it to across the world, but they are workable, and especially if you're in the West, it should be quite straightforward for you. So check them out if you're interested in playing around with some OTC stuff. I always suggest people to have a good OTC provider in their back pocket, and 𝗙𝐈𝗟𝗟 is one of the more competitive ones, great fees and all that stuff. So definitely worth checking out as well. In addition to, the, key exchanges in the market that I think are phenomenal. Obviously, these two linked at the top. Always check those out, only if you're not from a restricted region. But back to Sol BTC, definitely looking good in that sense. Definitely due for a reversal. And so if Bitcoin does start kind of really picking up its pace and moving aggressively higher, I do think that we might see a pullback in retracement. In this case, a pullback means a pullback in dominance, meaning that in this case, dominance goes up a little bit. And that totally makes sense. Sol BTC is at macro resistance. ETH BTC is at macro resistance. ADA BTC is very nearly at macro resistance. XRP kind of holding steady, not quite at macro resistance yet, but some of these really big coins definitely looking like they're it's not to say that they should reverse, but there's definitely scope for that to happen. And it wouldn't be surprising if Bitcoin really started to get very aggressive from here. Bitcoin has shown us that alts are interesting right now, so I think that's going to keep coming up. But I also think that if Bitcoin manages to see a 5, 6, 7K candle in one day, that is probably going to turn all of the spotlight back onto Bitcoin. And you are probably going to see Bitcoin soaking up some of that dominance again as well, which would be very, very good. I think this thing is definitely due for a kind of macro, move higher. And it would make sense if that happens, if Bitcoin starts aggressively trending up. But we are stacking if statements on top of themselves now. So obviously, as we know, our overall chance of being correct is going to drop a lot every time you have analysis which is contingent on another piece of analysis being correct. That's usually not good practice in my experience, but it is something that I wanted to note anyway, because I think that we're kind of opening the arena for stuff like that to be happening here in this market, which is, in my opinion, pretty damn exciting. Dogecoin, for example, moving up quite aggressively here, and against Bitcoin, it is about to enter a pretty significant kind of macro resistance zone as well. So tons and tons of things for us to be watching out for right now, for us to be excited for in this market. I think the main thing is going to be kind of seeing what Bitcoin ends up doing with the cards that it has in front of itself right now. Obviously, with this potential pullback that's underway, seeing where this pullback bottoms out, and then obviously, more importantly, if we are able to penetrate into this resistance zone and ideally beyond, that's where things could get really, really fun. So for now, I think alt positioning looks fantastic. I don't really like the idea of buying up here. Obviously, the time to buy was, when we were talking about buying them on this channel a couple of weeks ago, and now they have obviously gotten to, much, much higher price levels from even like where I was entering. This is a solid kind of 20% higher now, which is nice. Nothing crazy, but definitely good. And so, yeah, these are things that I'm going to be watching. I'll be back with you guys with more updates as they come. This is a little bit of a shorter video, but obviously we are live and posting videos when the market is moving. So if you have enjoyed this one, do me a favor and smash up those likes. Double check that you have subscribed to the channel. Do all that good stuff. Check out 𝗙𝐬𝗋 for OTC buying. Check out Bybit and Levex for phenomenal exchanges for crypto, pending, just checking that you are in a region which is not restricted. And yeah, we'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.